So first, I want to ask, what is success for you? Today, I'm going to introduce two people. One is Jaime Escalante, a renowned professor from Garfield High School in Los Angeles, and Elon Musk. Why am I introducing these professors? Well, Jaime Escalante is a professor born in Bolivia. As I mentioned before, he's a renowned professor in Garfield High School. He revolutionized education. He's mainly known for helping 18 of his students pass the AP Calculus exam, and he used the principles we're going to be talking about, like perseverance, discipline, and many of collective efforts. He believed that with the right mindset, with the right teachers, and with the right consistent effort, he could put a place in his students to pursue anything they pleased. Take into account Elon Musk, where he is much more of an entrepreneur and an innovator. He founded companies like SpaceX and Tesla. However, it wasn't all sunshines and rainbows. There were initial failures at first. In 2008, to be specific, there was going to be about a recession, and he was about to go broke. However, now, thanks to his consistent effort and his resilience, now his company is worth more than $867 billion. So as I mentioned before, what does success mean to you? For Escalante, it meant having a positive impact in the world, mainly more locally through his classroom environment, while for Elon, it was more like about social status and wealth. However, in this presentation, we will use the definition of success as mentioned in Oxford University, which mentions that success is the achievement of a desired outcome, usually attributed to social status and wealth. So how does one begin to have that self-control and that path to success? In a study published by the National Library of Medicine, which is called The Science and the Practice of Self-Control, it is found that self-control is a strong predictor for success. However, how do we gain that self-success? How do we gain that self-control and be the person that we want to be? How do we make our mind more disciplined and maintain that focus throughout our life? Well, I introduced to you the growth mindset. What is the growth mindset, you may ask? The growth mindset is a coined term by Carol Dweck, a renowned psychologist in Stanford University, which states that, quote, "It is the ability or the idea to think that anything is possible through consistent effort and dedication." So how do we define the growth mindset? Through steps. The first steps is attitude, behavior, action, and then success. Attitude basically is the idea that you could pursue anything you want. Basically, the idea that you could do anything you please and you could be victorious from it. Next, your behavior has to align with your attitude. You have to present yourself in a more professional manner. Your actions have to be more worth than your words. Then actions like implementing daily habits like meditation, journaling, as we heard of from some of our speakers, as well as going to the gym, which will make you more disciplined and stuff like that. Success, after going through a long road of these actions, you would ultimately gain success. However, it is important to remind ourselves to be patient with ourselves and also be resilient. So how does our brain respond to achievements? This is important because dopamine is a reward hormone, and when we challenge ourselves, this reward hormone tends to pop up more often. However, it also pops up whenever we're scrolling through our phone. However, the difference between that and scrolling through our phone from actually challenging ourselves, it's very wide. The dopamine hormone, it is found to be activated whenever you scroll through your phone. However, it leaves you with you being more unsatisfied and you being more addicted in the long run. However, when you're constantly challenging yourself, it leaves you feeling more satisfactory in the end, leaving you feeling that more satisfaction in the end and with more rewards, feeling like you need to accomplish more. So how does one apply these skills? Well, we first need to identify your mindset. Usually a poor mindset focuses on short-term goals. It focuses on instant gratification. It focuses on more of not taking responsibility for oneself. While the rich mindset focuses more on being responsible and taking care of one's actions, also being more disciplined and taking care of others as well. So where do we start? We could start by building up habits, as I mentioned before, meditating, journaling, or other stuff that could impact your success. You can start by practicing patience, stuff like as our speakers mentioned before, meditation, reading, journaling, building resilience as well. I think it is very important to learn from our mistakes. It is not always easy. I think we're always intact with having achievements being more rewarding, but also more fast. Like we tend to have, thanks to social media, we tend to have that easy dopamine-like effect. However, overnight success doesn't exist. So that's why it's important to have patience and remembering that with big dreams comes big risk, and with big risk comes inevitable failures. So that's why it's important to, as I mentioned before, learn from our mistakes and being patient. And it's also important to remind ourselves that building character is much more of a successful trait in the long run. It's not only about social status, it's not about financial freedom, but mostly about how you can make a positive impact in the world. So our final thoughts to end off, I would like to recite this quote from Jeanette Cron, which states, "To achieve success, you have to work hard and pray hard. Nothing worth having ever comes easy." This basically sums up what I said, that nothing worth having ever comes easy. You have to work hard for it, but also be patient with yourself and resilient. You also have to implement the thought that you can put anything in your mind and ultimately become victorious from it. So a reminder that to have patience with yourself, always be ready for the task, always be organized, always be ready for the big challenge. Always strive for more, but also don't be too ambitious and don't be too obsessed with it. Always have some control over yourself, and remember that nothing worth having ever comes easy. Thank you so much.